Our next guest has led a team that's taken from the playbooks of sports teams to try and steal recruiting tactics from scouts in Canada and apply it to a totally different industry, and that would be commercial real estate. With us in studio today is Keri Fraser. She's Vice President of People Services for Colliers North America, and with us today to talk about some of the lessons learned from how sports teams recruit talent and how that can be applied to real estate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Where did this idea come from? Because it seems like two totally different worlds.
Yeah, very different. So I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, our Canadian CEO, David Bowden, he read a case study on Manchester United, one of the most successful sports franchises in the world. Yeah. And the case study got into how they recruit and scout, how they train people within their farm team. Farm teams are normal thing within sports teams.
It's what I would play on if I was ever given the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. And then move them into the premiership team. And so it was his idea to think, how can we take something that's so successful and bring it into the corporate world, knowing that we're at a place right now in our industry to tap into different talent pool and potentially just look at a different way and be different and innovative.
Yeah. To use sort of that analogy, do there exist farm teams in the corporate world? Would that be, say, internships, apprenticeships, that sort of track? What would be similar?
Again, I think I would be on the farm team of the corporate world. But,
yeah. There's some similarities to internships, but I believe what the big difference is that what we're doing is we're really trying to create this premiership team, which is our future pipeline of top talent. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we're spending a lot of time scouting, looking out for what that talent is. And so that's the difference between recruiting and scouting. There's some overlap, but scouting is they're looking for your A players, maybe hopefully phenoms that we can work with. And that takes a lot more research. So you're finding potential people, you're spending time researching them, you're networking even before you decide if we want to talk to them. So there's a lot more investment up front. Then once we decide we even want to talk to them, then we're spending a lot of time having conversations to decide if we want to bring them into Colliers. And so then we have a year-long program that we developed, which is our farm team. Because once you find those people, you want to have a place for them to go.
So I'm just curious because you're kind of, to a certain degree, on the outside looking in, trying to make your best guess before you reach out. It's like, how do you guys actually make sure that you're making the right decisions here?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I don't think we've perfected it yet, but we have a very good idea. Look, we're very successful. We have a lot of successful sales advisors in our business already. So we can look at those people and what it takes, what are the things that have made them A players or phenoms, metrics, and then apply it and start, what are their attributes, and then start to look at what those attributes are. And some of it's gut also.
Well, that brings me to maybe my next question, because a lot of times you want the right cultural fit within, whoever you scoop up. You want somebody who's going to fit in well with the team. Is that a bit of a challenge as well? Just trying to figure that out? Because as you say, you kind of have to go with your gut at a certain point.
Yeah, it can be a challenge, but we're very clear on what's a cultural fit for Colliers. So that is the key thing, is knowing what works with Colliers and what doesn't. It's not just about finding any talent or any top talents. It's top talent that's going to fit within Colliers. And so we've spent a lot of time figuring out what that is. We did focus groups in 10 markets across North America with our sales advisors to understand what it is that brought them here, what keeps them here, and really honed in what that cultural fit is. So we're looking for that also.
You mentioned sort of what led to the idea of looking to sports teams for some of these ideas, but why change up recruitment and scouting strategies to begin with?
Yeah, so traditionally in the whole industry, the way that we were recruiting specifically for sales advisors was taking from competitors, which is still important, right? And if you look at sports teams, there are times when you're buying top talent, but you can only do so much of that. It can be a long courtship. it can be very expensive, and you don't always get a cultural fit because there can be quite embedded in that culture. So our plan is to double in size every 5 years. There's literally not enough of that talent pool, and all the competitors were going after the same people. So we felt there was a real opportunity to target some different candidate streams. So what our scouts are targeting is what we call B2B candidates. So people that are experienced professionals in other industries. Maybe they're a sales or business development person with another company, another industry that would want to potentially come work with us. And they just haven't considered it before, or university. And we weren't tapping into that candidate pool. So that's really what our scouts are spending time with. And then those people come into our farm team.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I have to believe it goes beyond just sales metrics, that the stuff that you guys are looking for.
Yes.
Maybe I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, but do you guys have an eye towards diversity as well within the ranks?
Yeah, great question. That is also one of the challenges with only going after the competitive hire, because it lacks diversity and all types of diversity. I don't mean just the traditional, it's also diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And so what this has allowed us is to open up in a very organic way. We've started to create a more diverse workforce within Colliers. We're already seeing it, and having our people now reflect more of our clients, which is what they're looking for.
Well, I think it's going to get better client response as well. If you know,
absolutely.
And I think diversity of thought is like a very good point that you're bringing up. And I think does it surprise you how long it's taken a lot of companies to kind of like jump on board with that whole idea there?
Yeah, it does surprise me. I don't know what all other companies are doing, but I do know that within our industry, we're the ones first doing this. Yeah. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we started recording, you worked with the Whitecaps, the Canadians, some local teams to try and see how they do this.
Yes.
Obviously, they're not going to be looking to, say, the university sector for their talent, right? It's still within the sporting world. But is there any sort of case study in terms of how they try and bring in diversity in a different sense within constraints that they have to meet?
You know what? That's not something that I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't something that we had asked them. It's a great question. We were really focusing on how is it that what's working for them, and how can we bring it into the corporate world? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you're piloting the program in Canada.
Yes.
Still fairly new, but what has some of the impact been to date?
Yeah, so we brought on and developed our scouting team a year ago. So we have 3 scouts. So we have one that's specifically for university scouting, and then 2 that's going after the B2B and some of the junior competitive hires. And so that was a year ago. Within a year, they've brought on, I think, 55 people, and they have a pipeline of people that they're considering of about 1,200.
So I picture the life of a sports scout. You're at like small towns, sitting in crummy arenas, trying to take meticulous notes. How does it work day to day though? Because with the 3 scouts, I'm assuming a lot of it can be done remotely, and then you kind of have to go in for the kill, so to speak. But I mean, tell us maybe how it works just on a day to day basis. Yeah,
the last year they have spent a lot of time becoming experts in the business, because our scouts, they come from the recruiting world. So our CEO, for instance, spends an hour and a half with them every week. He wants them to know as much about the business as he does, and as much as our leaders does, so they can speak to it when they're talking to candidates and know what to look for. They're in sales meetings. They've attended client pitches. They're watching people in action. They're spending time with our leaders. So that's been a good portion of their time. And then it's probably a little bit more interesting in the scouting world, in the corporate world. They are attending networking events and conferences and meeting people. They're not in small towns.
No, in the corporate world, the boardrooms and a city conference halls, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How would this differ from, say, hiring a headhunting firm? Or is it simply sort of like having your own headhunting firm within the organization?
There's some similarities, but a headhunting firm is interested in filling a position. And this is so much more than that. This is about building our pipeline of top talent. And that takes a lot more knowledge and investment in our business and in our company, where a headhunter is strictly more focused on just filling the role.
Great. Well, Keri, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us with your insights into really what's been a very interesting initiative.
Thank you so much.
That's Keri Fraser. She's Vice President of People Services for Colliers North America.